The harvest moon hung like a bloody promise in the October sky, casting long shadows across the sacred clearing where my life was about to end. I pressed my back against the rough bark of the ancient oak, my heart hammering against my ribs as I watched the scene unfolding 20 feet away. Alpha Kai, my destined mate, my other half, the man I'd loved since we were children, had his hands tangled in Beta Elena's honey blonde hair, his mouth moving hungrily against hers. This can't be happening. But it was. The mate bond that had thrummed between us for 4 years like a golden thread was about to be severed in the most brutal way possible. Tonight. In front of the entire Moonridge pack. Sera. My wolf, Arya, stirred uneasily in my mind. Something's wrong. We need to leave. Now. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Could only watch as Kai's hands roamed Elena's curves, mapping territory that should have been mine alone. I've waited so long for this, Elena breathed against his lips, her voice carrying on the crisp autumn air. Once you reject her, we can finally be together properly. No more hiding. Kai pulled back, his steel-gray eyes that used to look at me with such tenderness, now cold as winter stone. She's served her purpose. Keeping the pack stable while I prepared for real leadership. But you're right. A true alpha needs a strong Luna, not some weak little mouse who can barely shift. The words hit me like physical blows. Weak little mouse. Is that really how he saw me? Her bloodline is impressive, Elena said, trailing her fingers down his chest. But bloodlines don't make warriors. And the Moonridge pack needs warrior Lunas, not fragile little flowers who faint at the sight of blood. Exactly. Kai's voice was harsh, businesslike. The rejection ceremony is in an hour. After tonight, she'll be nothing more than a bad memory. My legs gave out. I slid down the oak's trunk, bark scraping against my silk ceremonial dress, the white dress I'd chosen specifically because Kai once said I looked like a goddess in white. Now it felt like a burial shroud. For years. For years of believing we were destined, that the moon goddess herself had chosen us for each other. For years of planning our future, our children, our reign together. For years of being the perfect mate, the perfect daughter, the perfect pack member. All lies. Sera, we have to go. Arya's voice was urgent now, tinged with panic. I can smell other wolves approaching. The ceremony. Luna Sera? I jerked my head up to find Beta Marcus, Kai's second-in-command, standing above me. His expression was carefully neutral, but I caught the flash of pity in his dark eyes before he shuttered it away. The Alpha requires your presence in the ceremonial clearing, he said formally. The pack is gathering. I struggled to my feet, my legs shaking. Marcus, please. I know you've been loyal to our family for years. My father saved your life during the rogue attacks. Can't you? I'm sorry, Luna. His voice was gentle but final. Alpha's orders. The walk to the ceremonial clearing felt like a death march. Pack members lined the path, their faces a mixture of curiosity, sympathy, and barely concealed excitement. Nothing like a good public humiliation to spice up the monthly gathering. The clearing was already packed when we arrived. Nearly 300 wolves in their human forms stood in concentric circles around the ancient stone altar at the center. Torches flickered in the darkness, casting dancing shadows that made the whole scene feel otherworldly. At the altar stood the pack elders, their weathered faces grave. Elder Morrison held the ceremonial chalice, silver inscribed with moon phases, filled with the wolfsbane solution that would sever our bond permanently. The sight of it made my stomach lurch. And there, standing beside the altar in his formal alpha robes, was Kai. He looked magnificent, I had to admit. 6'4" of pure muscle and authority, his dark hair catching the torchlight, his steel-gray eyes scanning the crowd with calculated precision. Everything about him screamed power, dominance, leadership. Everything except the way he carefully avoided looking at me. Members of the Moonridge pack, Elder Morrison's voice boomed across the clearing. We gather tonight under the sacred harvest moon to witness the severing of a mate bond that has proven unsuitable for our alpha's needs. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some sympathetic, others openly curious. I caught sight of Elena standing with the other high-ranking females, a small, satisfied smile playing at her lips. Luna Sera Whitmore, the elder continued, please step forward. My feet moved without conscious thought, carrying me through the parted crowd toward the altar. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if the very earth was trying to hold me back from this moment. I stopped 3 feet from Kai, finally forcing myself to meet his eyes. For just a second, one brief, shining second, I saw something flicker there. Regret? Pain? But then his expression hardened into cold resolve. Sera, he said, his voice carrying easily across the silent clearing. For 4 years, you have served as my intended mate. But leadership requires strength, and a true alpha cannot be bound to weakness. The words hit like physical blows, but I kept my chin high. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. Not yet. You are too fragile for the challenges our pack faces, Kai continued, his voice growing stronger, more confident. Your wolf is small, your fighting skills minimal, your presence more liability than asset. An alpha's mate must be his equal in all things, and you are not. Breathe. Just breathe. Therefore, Kai's voice rang out clear and final, under the laws of our ancestors and with the blessing of the moon goddess, I, Alpha Kai Thornfield of the Moonridge Pack, formally reject you, Sera Whitmore, as my destined mate. The bond that had lived in my chest for 4 years, that golden thread of connection, love, and belonging, snapped like a physical thing. The pain was indescribable, as if someone had reached into my chest and torn out my heart with bare hands. I gasped, doubling over as agony ripped through every nerve ending. The mate bond severing felt like dying and being reborn in the span of a heartbeat, leaving nothing but hollow emptiness where love used to live. No, I whispered, the word torn from my throat. Kai, please. To complete the rejection, Elder Morrison intoned, stepping forward with the chalice, the rejected mate must drink the wolfsbane solution, permanently severing all supernatural connection and rendering her powerless for 30 days of cleansing. I stared at the chalice with its swirling silver liquid. Wolfsbane. The one substance that could completely suppress a werewolf's abilities, leaving them essentially human. For 30 days, I would be defenseless, unable to shift, unable to access my supernatural strength or healing. Vulnerable. Drink, Sera, Kai commanded, his voice echoing with alpha authority. My hand shook as I reached for the chalice. The metal was ice cold against my palms, and I could smell the bitter, toxic scent of the wolfsbane even through the ceremonial herbs meant to mask it. I loved you, I whispered, meeting his eyes one last time. Something flickered across his face, pain, regret, something almost human. But then Elena stepped forward, linking her arm through his, and his expression hardened once more. Love is a luxury alphas can't afford, he said coldly. I lifted the chalice to my lips. The wolfsbane burned like liquid fire going down, searing my throat and spreading through my system like poison. Because that's exactly what it was. The world immediately began to blur at the edges, and I felt Arya, my constant companion, my other half, begin to retreat deep into my consciousness. Arya? I called desperately through our mental link. I'm sorry, her voice was already fading, growing distant. I'm so sorry, Sera. I tried to warn you, there's something else here, something watching, be careful. And then she was gone. The connection between us, the supernatural awareness that had been part of me since my first shift at 16, vanished like a snuffed candle. I was alone in my own head for first time in 6 years. The chalice slipped from my numb fingers, clattering against the stone altar. My legs gave out completely, and I felt myself falling toward the unforgiving ground. But instead of cold earth, strong arms caught me. Arms that definitely didn't belong to Kai. Through my wolfsbane-hazed vision, I looked up into eyes like dark winter storms, gray so deep they were almost black, surrounded by thick lashes and set in a face that was both beautiful and terrifying. Sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw, and lips that looked like they rarely smiled. This wasn't a face I recognized from our pack. Easy, little wolf, a deep voice rumbled above me, sending unexpected shivers down my spine despite the poison coursing through my system. I've got you. Gasps and shouts erupted around us as the pack realized what was happening. A stranger, an alpha, judging by the raw power radiating from him, had somehow infiltrated our most sacred ceremony. Impossible, Kai snarled, his own alpha authority flaring as he stepped forward. No one can breach our territory undetected during a moon ceremony. The stranger holding me chuckled, a sound like distant thunder. Hello, brother. Brother? Even through the wolfsbane fog, I could see the family resemblance now. Both men had the same strong build, the same commanding presence, the same steel-gray eyes. But where Kai's were cold calculation, this man's burned with something deeper. Hungrier. Damon, Kai breathed, and I could hear actual fear in his voice for the first time ever. What are you doing here? Damon Blackthorn. I knew that name. Every pack member knew that name. Alpha of the Shadowpine pack, Moonridge's most bitter enemy. The wolf who'd been waging a shadow war against us for years, picking off our border patrols, disrupting our supply lines, making our lives hell. And he was holding me like I was made of spun glass. What am I doing here? Damon's voice was silky smooth, but underneath I could hear the promise of violence. I'm collecting what's mine. She's not yours, Kai snarled, his wolf rising to the surface. The rejection is complete. She belongs to no one. Is that so? Damon looked down at me, and something in his expression made my breath catch. There was recognition there. Like he'd been expecting this moment. Tell me, little wolf, do you feel the emptiness where your bond used to be? I could only nod weakly. The wolfsbane was making it hard to think, hard to focus on anything except the warmth of his arms around me. That emptiness, Damon continued, never taking his eyes off mine, exists because you were never truly bound to him in the first place. That's impossible, Elder Morrison stepped forward, his face pale. The moon goddess chose. The moon goddess chose correctly, Damon interrupted, his voice carrying an authority that made even the elder step back. She just didn't choose him. And then, before anyone could react, before Kai could issue orders or the pack could attack, Damon shifted his grip on me and leaped. Not shifted, leaped. In his human form, he bounded effortlessly over the heads of 300 pack members in a single jump, landing silently at the edge of the clearing where the forest began. This isn't over. Kai roared behind us, his voice echoing with fury and something that might have been panic. No, Damon agreed, his voice a low rumble against my ear as he melted into the shadows between the trees. It's just beginning. The last thing I saw before consciousness fled was a pair of golden eyes watching us from deep within the forest, eyes that seemed to glow with their own inner light, ancient and knowing and filled with something that looked almost like approval. Then darkness claimed me, and I knew nothing more. If you are enjoying this video, do well to like this video and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. Chapter 2. Consciousness returned like a tide, slow, inevitable, and carrying debris from the wreckage of my old life. The first thing I noticed was warmth. Real, enveloping heat that seemed to seep into my bones and chase away the bone-deep chill that had settled there during the rejection ceremony. The second thing was the scent surrounding me, pine and leather, smoke and something darker, more primal. Definitely male. Definitely not Kai. My eyes fluttered open to find myself in a bedroom that screamed wealth and power. Dark wood furniture that looked hand-carved, rich burgundy fabrics, and a stone fireplace where flames danced and crackled. The bed beneath me was massive, easily king-sized, with sheets so soft they felt like water against my skin. Where the hell was I? Memory crashed back in waves. The rejection. The wolfsbane. Kai's cold, dismissive words. And then Damon Blackthorn. The enemy alpha who'd somehow infiltrated our ceremony and carried me away like I weighed nothing. I sat up too quickly, and the world tilted sickeningly. My hand flew to my throat, expecting to feel the burning aftermath of the wolfsbane, but there was only a dull ache. How long had I been unconscious? Easy. That voice, deep, rough, with an edge that spoke of command and barely leashed power, came from somewhere to my left. The wolfsbane is still working its way through your system. Moving too fast will only make it worse. I turned to find Damon Blackthorn sitting in a leather chair beside the bed, watching me with those storm-gray eyes. In the firelight, he looked even more dangerous than he had in the clearing. His dark hair was tousled, as if he'd been running his hands through it, and he wore simple black clothes that did nothing to hide the predatory grace of his movements as he leaned forward. "You," I managed, my voice coming out as a croak. "Me." His lips curved in what might have been amusement, but his eyes remained serious. "Welcome to Shadowpine territory, little wolf." Little wolf. The endearment sent an unexpected shiver through me, one that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with the way his voice wrapped around the words like a caress. "Why?" The question came out smaller than I'd intended. "Why did you take me?" "Because leaving you there would have been a waste." He said it matter-of-factly, as if discussing the weather. "And because what belongs to me stays with me." "I don't belong to you." The words came out with more strength than I felt. "I don't belong to anyone. Not anymore." Something flickered in his expression, approval, maybe, or respect. "No, you don't. But that doesn't change the fact that you're here, in my territory, under my protection." Protection? I pushed myself higher against the pillows, ignoring the way the room swayed. "Or captivity? That depends entirely on you." The cryptic answer sent frustration spiraling through me. I swung my legs over the side of the bed, pleased when they held my weight despite the lingering weakness. "I want to go home." "Do you?" His tone was deceptively mild. "Back to the pack that just watched their alpha humiliate and poison you? Back to the people who stood by and did nothing while you suffered?" The truth of his words hit like a physical blow. They had done nothing. 300 pack members, people I'd grown up with, people I'd considered family, had watched Kai destroy me and hadn't lifted a finger to help. "They're still my pack," I said weakly. "Are they?" Damon rose from his chair with fluid grace, moving to stand by the fireplace. The flames cast shadows across his face, making him look like something carved from darkness itself. "Tell me, Sera Whitmore, when did any of them last show you genuine loyalty? When did any of them choose you over Kai's approval?" I opened my mouth to argue, then closed it. Because the horrible truth was, I couldn't think of a single instance. Not one. "I need fresh air," I said instead, moving toward what I hoped was a window. "The door's that way." Damon nodded toward the far wall. "But I wouldn't recommend it. You're still weak, and my pack, they're not used to visitors." It sounded like a warning, but I was too desperate to escape the suffocating realization of my own naivety to care. I needed space to think, to process, to figure out what the hell I was going to do now that my entire life had imploded. The door opened onto a long hallway lined with more of that rich dark wood. Sconces cast pools of golden light every few feet, but between them lay shadows deep enough to hide secrets. I could hear voices somewhere below, the low rumble of conversation, the clink of dishes, normal pack sounds that should have been comforting but instead felt alien. I found a staircase and descended on unsteady legs, following the sound of voices toward what turned out to be a massive great room. Leather furniture was arranged around another stone fireplace, and a dozen or so people sat scattered throughout the space, talking quietly among themselves. The conversation died the moment they saw me. Every pair of eyes turned in my direction, and I felt their assessment like a physical weight. These weren't the soft, civilized wolves of Moonridge Pack. These people looked harder, more dangerous. Battle-tested. Several bore scars, and all of them carried themselves with the easy confidence of warriors. Well, a woman with short auburn hair and predatory amber eyes rose from one of the couches. "The little Moonridge princess is awake. Careful, Lydia." This from a massive man with graying temples and the build of a career soldier. Alpha's orders were clear. Were they? Lydia's smile was all teeth. Because I seemed to remember him being very interested in our guests' potential. The emphasis she put on the word made my skin crawl, but I lifted my chin and met her stare. I'm not a prisoner here. Aren't you? Her laugh was sharp. Try leaving, sweetheart. See how far you get. The challenge in her voice sparked something in me, some stubborn core of pride that had somehow survived Kai's rejection. Maybe I will. Before anyone could respond, I turned and walked back the way I'd come, ignoring the renewed murmur of conversation behind me. But instead of returning to the bedroom, I found a different corridor, one that led toward what I hoped was an exit. The hallway ended in a heavy wooden door that opened onto a covered porch. Beyond that lay forest, dense, dark pines that stretched in every direction. The night air was crisp and clean, carrying scents of earth and growing things that made my soul ache for what I'd lost. I stepped off the porch and into the trees, following what might have been a path in the moonlight. Every step took me deeper into shadow pine territory, farther from the warmth and safety of the house behind me. But I didn't care. I needed to move, needed to feel like I had some control over my own fate. I made it perhaps a quarter mile before the wolfsbane's lingering effects caught up with me. The world tilted without warning, and I found myself on my knees in the pine needles, gasping for breath as weakness flooded through my limbs. Without area strength to draw on, my human body simply couldn't handle the stress of everything that had happened. Stubborn little thing, aren't you? I looked up to find Damon standing between two massive pines, moonlight silvering his dark hair. He didn't look surprised to find me collapsed in his forest. If anything, he looked like he'd been expecting this exact scenario. Did you follow me? I managed. I felt the moment you left the house. He moved closer, and I caught that intoxicating scent of pine and leather again. The wolfsbane suppresses your wolf, not our connection. What connection? But even as I asked, I could feel it, a thin thread of awareness that hummed between us, different from the mate bond I'd shared with Kai but no less real. Instead of answering, Damon knelt beside me in the pine needles. His hands were gentle as they slipped under my arms, lifting me to my feet with effortless strength. Come on. Let's get you back inside before you freeze. I should have protested. Should have demanded answers, insisted on my independence, refused his help. Instead, I found myself leaning into his warmth, letting him support my weight as we walked back through the forest. Why are you being kind to me? The question slipped out before I could stop it. His step faltered almost imperceptibly. What makes you think I'm being kind? You could have left me out there. Let me learn my lesson the hard way. Maybe I still will. But his arm tightened around my waist, and the threat held no heat. Back at the house, he helped me upstairs to the bedroom I was beginning to think of as mine. The fire had been banked to glowing embers, and someone had left a tray of food on the bedside table, soup that smelled rich and nourishing, fresh bread, and a pot of what looked like herbal tea. Eat, Damon commanded, settling me back onto the bed. The wolfsbane will clear your system faster if you keep your strength up. I wanted to refuse on principle, but my stomach chose that moment to growl loudly enough to make him smile, a real smile this time, one that transformed his entire face. I'll eat if you answer my questions, I bargained. Some of them. He moved to the fireplace, adding fresh logs until the flames danced higher. What do you want to know? Why me? Why risk infiltrating a moon ceremony just to rescue someone you've never met? His back stiffened, and for a moment I thought he wouldn't answer. Then he turned, and the expression in his eyes made my breath catch. Who says I've never met you? Before I could process that cryptic response, he continued. Eat, Sera. We'll talk more tomorrow when you're stronger. Wait. But he was already moving toward the door, pausing only to look back at me one more time. Sweet dreams, little wolf. Try not to run away again. Next time, I might not come looking for you. The door closed behind him with a soft click, leaving me alone with more questions than answers and the lingering scent of pine and leather. I ate the soup mechanically, my mind racing. There had been recognition in his eyes when he'd carried me from the ceremony, familiarity in the way he'd called me little wolf. But I would have remembered meeting someone like Damon Blackthorn. Wouldn't I? The herbal tea was soothing, with an aftertaste I couldn't quite identify. Whatever it was, it worked quickly. My eyelids grew heavy, and despite my racing thoughts, sleep began to pull me under. But just before I drifted off completely, I could have sworn I heard voices from somewhere below, Damon's distinctive rumble and another man's higher tenor. "She's the key to everything," Damon was saying. "Once she's strong enough, we can begin." "And if she refuses to cooperate?" the other voice asked. "She won't." There was absolute certainty in Damon's tone. "She doesn't understand what she is yet, but she will. And when she does, she'll want revenge against Kai just as much as we do." The voices faded as sleep claimed me, but Damon's words echoed in my dreams. "She's the key to everything." Key to what? I dreamed of golden eyes watching from dark forests, of ancient magic that tasted like moonlight and silver, of two young boys who looked alike but couldn't have been more different. In the dream, one boy stood in sunlight while the other lurked in shadows, and between them lay a crown that neither could claim. But the strangest part of the dream was the voice that whispered through it all, familiar and beloved, even though it should have been lost to me. "Sera." Arya's voice was faint, barely a whisper in my mind. "Can you hear me? Arya?" I tried to call back, but my dream voice came out as barely a breath. "The wolfsbane is weakening," she said, her words growing slightly stronger. "I can almost reach you. Listen to me carefully. He's not what he seems. The alpha who took you, there's more to his story than revenge. More to yours, too." "What do you mean?" "Your bloodline, Sera. It's not what they told you. Not what anyone told you. The moon goddess didn't choose you for Kai, she chose you for something else entirely. Something bigger. Something that scares them all." "Who? Who's scared?" But Arya's voice was already fading, the wolfsbane reasserting its hold. "Be careful who you trust. He's not what he seems, but neither are you." I woke with a gasp, my heart pounding and Arya's words echoing in my mind. Pale morning light filtered through the windows, and the fire had burned down to ash. But the scent of pine and leather still lingered, along with something else. The scent of secrets. And somewhere in the house below, I could hear movement, the sounds of a pack waking up, beginning their day. My captors. My protectors. My future, whether I wanted it or not. I rose and moved to the window, looking out over the forest that stretched endlessly in all directions. Somewhere out there lay answers to questions I was only beginning to understand. And somewhere out there, Kai was probably planning his next move. But for the first time since the rejection ceremony, I felt something other than despair. I felt curiosity. And beneath that, growing stronger with each breath, I felt the first stirrings of something that might have been hope. Or revenge. Maybe they were the same thing. If you are enjoying this video, do well to like this video and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. Chapter 3. 3 days later, I could feel Arya stirring stronger in my mind, the wolfsbane finally loosening its poisonous grip on my system. With her return came something else, a restless energy that made my skin feel too tight and my nerves sing with barely contained power. I stood at the window of what I'd come to think of as my prison sanctuary, watching Damon train with his pack in the clearing below. Even from the second floor, I could see the deadly precision of his movements, the way he anticipated every attack and countered with brutal efficiency. 3 wolves circled him in their human forms, armed with practice weapons, and he disarmed all of them within minutes. Magnificent, isn't he? I spun to find Lydia leaning against the doorframe, her amber eyes fixed on the scene below with something that looked like hunger. "I wouldn't know," I lied. Her laugh was sharp as broken glass. "Oh, honey, you can lie to yourself all you want, but that blush tells a different story." She pushed off the doorframe and moved into the room with predatory grace. "He's been watching you, you know. Every morning, he positions himself where he can see this window while he trains." My traitorous heart skipped a beat, but I kept my expression neutral. "I'm sure he's just making sure his prisoner doesn't escape again." "Is that what you think you are? A prisoner?" Lydia's smile was all teeth. How deliciously naive. Tell me, little Moonridge princess, what do you know about your bloodline? The question caught me off guard. What does that have to do with anything? Everything. She moved to stand beside me at the window, her reflection ghost-like in the glass. Your precious Kai never told you, did he? Never explained why the moon goddess chose you specifically for him? She chooses all mate pairs, I said automatically, parroting what I'd been taught since childhood. Does she? Lydia's voice was silk over steel. Then why did she choose someone with moon goddess blood for a common alpha like Kai Thornfield? The world tilted. That's impossible. Moon goddess bloodlines died out centuries ago. Did they? She turned to face me fully, and there was something almost pitying in her expression. Sweet little wolf, you have no idea what you are, do you? Before I could demand answers, the door opened and Damon filled the doorway. His dark hair was damp with sweat, his black training shirt clinging to muscles that spoke of years of hard fighting. But it was his eyes that made my breath catch, storm gray and focused on me with an intensity that made my skin heat. Lydia. His voice carried a warning. Didn't I tell you to leave our guest alone? Just making conversation. But she moved toward the door, pausing to whisper something in his ear that made his jaw clench. When she was gone, Damon stepped into the room and closed the door behind him. The space immediately felt smaller, charged with an electricity that made the air itself seem to shimmer. You look stronger, he observed, those gray eyes cataloging every detail of my appearance. The wolfsbane is clearing my system. I tried to keep my voice steady, professional. Arya is coming back to me. Good. He moved closer, and I caught that intoxicating scent of pine and leather. Because it's time we talked about what you really are. Lydia said something about moon goddess bloodlines, I said carefully. She seemed to think I. Come with me. It wasn't a request. Damon turned and walked toward the door, clearly expecting me to follow. After a moment's hesitation, I did. He led me through the house and out a back door I hadn't seen before, into a part of the forest where the trees grew so thick they blocked out most of the afternoon sun. The air here felt different, older, wilder, touched with magic that made my newly awakening wolf stir restlessly. We walked in silence for perhaps 10 minutes before arriving at a clearing dominated by a circle of standing stones. They were ancient, weathered by centuries of wind and rain, but still radiating power that made my skin prickle with awareness. This is where my pack conducts our most sacred rituals, Damon said, stopping at the edge of the circle. It's also where I'm going to show you what you can really do. I don't understand. Instead of answering, he moved to the center of the circle and held out his hand. Trust me. Every instinct I possessed screamed at me not to step into that circle, not to take his hand, not to trust a man who'd admitted he was using me for revenge. But something deeper than instinct, something that felt like destiny, pulled me forward. The moment his fingers closed around mine, power exploded through me. Not the gentle warmth of a normal wolf's abilities, but something wild and silver bright that raced through my veins like liquid starlight. I gasped, stumbling, but Damon's grip kept me upright. What? I started to ask, but he shook his head. Focus on the power. Feel it. Don't fight it. The energy was overwhelming, too much for my human body to contain. I felt it building behind my ribs, pressing against my skin, demanding release. Without conscious thought, I threw back my head and let it pour out of me. Silver light erupted from my skin, illuminating the entire clearing with otherworldly radiance. The standing stones began to glow in response, ancient runes carved into their surfaces blazing to life. Power sang in the air around us, wild and free and absolutely terrifying. Impossible, I breathed, staring at my hands as silver flames danced along my fingers. Not impossible. Damon's voice was rough with something that might have been awe. Inevitable. You're not just any wolf, Sera. You're a direct descendant of the moon goddess herself. The last of your bloodline. The silver fire flickered and died as shock stole my concentration. That can't be true. Your great-great-grandmother was Elena Moonborn, daughter of the goddess. She gave up her immortality for love, choosing to live as a mortal wolf. The bloodline has been diluted over the generations, dormant in most of her descendants. His gray eyes burned as they met mine. But not in you. I sank to my knees in the grass, overwhelmed. Kai never said, he never mentioned. Because he never bothered to look deeper than surface appearances. Damon knelt beside me, his presence solid and reassuring in the face of this earth-shattering revelation. He saw a pretty, biddable she-wolf who would look good on his arm and give him strong cubs. He never saw the goddess-born power sleeping in your blood. But you did. I felt it the first time I saw you, 3 months ago at the pack gathering in neutral territory. You were laughing at something your friend said, and for just a moment, silver light flickered in your eyes. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. That's when I knew. Knew what? That you were mine. The possessive growl in his voice sent heat spiraling through me, but I forced myself to focus on the larger implications. Is that why you've been planning your revenge against Kai? Because of me? Kai stole something that belonged to me long before you were born, Damon said, his expression hardening. But yes, seeing him waste what he had with you, it made the need for justice more urgent. What did he steal? For a long moment, I thought he wouldn't answer. Then he stood and moved to one of the glowing stones, pressing his palm against the ancient surface. My birthright. My pack. My future. His voice was flat, emotionless. Kai and I are half-brothers. Sons of Alpha Magnus Thornfield, but from different mothers. When our father died, the pack leadership should have gone to me. I was older, stronger, more experienced. But Kai's mother had been the official Luna, while mine was just a warrior's daughter Magnus loved in secret. The pieces began clicking into place. So the pack chose legitimacy over merit. They chose politics over strength. And I've spent the last 10 years building my own pack, biding my time, waiting for the right moment to take back what's mine. He turned to face me, and the raw hunger in his expression made my breath catch. You, Sera Whitmore, are that moment. Because of my bloodline. Because moon goddess blood carries the right to challenge any alpha's claim. With you by my side, I can invoke the old laws, demand a leadership trial by combat. And when I win, both packs will be mine. The truth hit me like a physical blow. He wasn't just using me for revenge, he was using me as a legal loophole, a way to legitimize his claim to power. The realization should have made me angry, should have sent me running back to the house to plan another escape. Instead, it made me curious. And what makes you think I'll help you? I asked. His smile was sharp as a blade's edge. Because you want justice as much as I do. Because you're tired of being underestimated and overlooked. Because deep down, you know that what we have between us is real. We don't have anything between us. Don't we? He moved toward me with predatory grace, and I found myself backing up until I hit one of the standing stones. The ancient rock was warm against my back, still glowing faintly with residual power. Damon planted one hand on either side of my head, caging me against the stone. This close, I could see the flecks of silver in his gray eyes, could feel the heat radiating from his body. Your pulse is racing, he murmured, his voice a low rumble that I felt in my bones. Your scent is changing, sweetening. Your pupils are dilated. Shall I continue? That's just physical reaction, I managed. Is it? His thumb traced along my jawline, and I couldn't suppress the shiver that ran through me. Then why does your power respond to mine? Why do the stones glow brighter when we're both touching them? I looked around and realized he was right. The standing stones were blazing with silver-white light, brighter than they'd been when I'd released my power alone. It means nothing, I whispered. It means everything. His forehead came to rest against mine, and his voice dropped to barely audible. You were never Kai's, Sera. The moon goddess doesn't make mistakes. The bond you felt with him was artificial, a shadow of what real mates share. That's not possible. Isn't it? Tell me, did you ever feel complete with him? Did your wolf ever settle completely in his presence? Did you ever touch him and feel like you were coming home? I opened my mouth to say yes, then closed it again. Because the horrible truth was, I hadn't. I'd loved Kai, or thought I had, but there had always been something missing. Some essential piece that never quite fit into place. He never made you feel like this, Damon continued, his thumb now tracing my lower lip. Did he? Like what? I wanted to ask, but I already knew the answer. Like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, about to leap into something vast and terrifying and absolutely necessary. Like every cell in my body was suddenly, vibrantly alive. Like I'd been sleepwalking through my entire life until this moment. No, I admitted. Because he wasn't your true mate. I am. And then his mouth was on mine, and the world exploded into silver fire. The kiss was nothing like the careful, controlled affection Kai had shown me. This was wild, desperate, consuming. Damon kissed me like he was drowning and I was air, like he'd been waiting his entire life for this moment. And God help me, I kissed him back with equal hunger. Power erupted between us, silver light so bright it turned the forest into a wonderland of dancing shadows. The standing stones sang with ancient harmonies, and I could feel the very earth responding to our connection. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Damon's eyes had gone molten silver. Mine, he growled against my lips. Yours, I heard myself agree, and felt the rightness of it settle into my bones. We might have stayed there forever, lost in the intensity of finally acknowledging what sparked between us, but a howl in the distance shattered the moment. Then another. And another. Damon's head snapped up, his entire body going tense. We need to get back to the house. Now. What is it? Border breach. Multiple wolves, moving fast toward the main compound. His gray eyes met mine, and I saw grim certainty there. Kai's found us. We ran through the forest, Damon's hand clasped firmly around mine as he led us back toward the house by routes I never could have navigated alone. Behind us, howls continued to split the air, a war song that spoke of blood and violence and territorial fury. By the time we burst through the back door, the house was in chaos. Pack members ran in every direction, grabbing weapons, shouting orders, preparing for battle. Through the front windows, I could see torches moving through the trees, dozens of them, forming a loose circle around the compound. Alpha Marcus, Damon's beta, appeared at his elbow. Moonridge Pack, at least 50 strong. They're demanding the return of Sera Whitmore. Like hell, Damon snarled, but before he could issue orders, the front door exploded inward. Kai strode through the wreckage like an avenging angel, flanked by his best warriors. His steel-gray eyes, so like Damon's yet so different, swept the room until they found me. "Hello, Sera," he said, his voice carrying easily over the sudden silence. "Time to come home." "She is home," Damon stepped in front of me, his body a living shield between me and my former mate. "And she's not going anywhere." Kai's smile was cold as winter. "That's not your choice to make, brother. She belongs to Moonridge Pack. She belongs to me." "Actually," I said, stepping out from behind Damon's protective bulk, "I belong to myself. And I'm not going anywhere with you." Kai's expression darkened. "You're confused. Traumatized. The Wolfsbane has affected your judgment." "My judgment is perfectly clear." I moved to stand beside Damon, close enough that our shoulders touched. "I know what I am now. What I'm capable of. And I know you never deserved me." For just a moment, something flickered in Kai's eyes, regret, maybe, or loss. But then his expression hardened into alpha authority. "If you won't come willingly, I'll take you by force." "Try it," Damon snarled, power radiating from him in waves. The two brothers faced each other across the destroyed entryway, and I could feel the weight of old grievances, old betrayals, old hatreds pressing down on us all. This had been inevitable from the moment Damon carried me away from the rejection ceremony. Maybe from the moment we were all born. But as I watched them prepare for battle, as I felt the power stirring restlessly in my own blood, I realized something that changed everything. I was pregnant. The knowledge hit me like a physical blow, so certain and undeniable that I wondered how I'd missed it. The signs had been there, the increased sensitivity to sense, the strange cravings, the way my power had suddenly intensified. I was carrying Damon's child, conceived in a moment of wild passion under the full moon just 3 nights ago. I opened my mouth to tell him, to share this miraculous, terrifying news, but Kai spoke first. Last chance, Sera. Come home peacefully, or watch me destroy everything Damon has built. She's not going anywhere, Damon repeated, his voice deadly quiet. Then you've chosen war. Kai raised his hand, and through the broken door poured the full might of the Moonridge pack. 50 wolves in human form, armed and ready for battle, with murder in their eyes and old pack loyalty driving them forward. The baby. I pressed a protective hand to my still flat stomach, fear for the new life growing there overwhelming every other consideration. Whatever happened next, I had to protect Damon's heir. Our child. The war for my future was about to begin, and I was carrying the one thing that would change everything, if any of us survived long enough for it to matter. If you are enjoying this video, do well to like this video and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. Chapter 4. The first clash of steel against steel rang out like a death knell in the great room, and I knew there would be no going back from this moment. Chaos erupted as the 2 packs collided in a symphony of violence. Shadowpine wolves, outnumbered but fighting on their own territory, met Moonridge's assault with the desperate ferocity of the cornered. Furniture splintered, walls cracked, and the air filled with the sounds of combat, snarls, screams, and the wet sound of claws finding flesh. Stay behind me, Damon commanded, his voice cutting through the din as he drew a wicked-looking blade from somewhere beneath his shirt. But staying behind him meant watching him fight for his life while I stood helpless, and I couldn't bear it. Not when I was carrying his child. Not when everything I was beginning to care about hung in the balance. Power stirred in my blood, that silver fire I discovered in the stone circle. Without conscious thought, I reached for it. Sera, no. Damon must have felt what I was doing through our newfound connection, but his warning came too late. Silver light exploded from my skin, washing over the battling wolves like liquid starlight. Every person in the room froze mid-strike, caught in the otherworldly radiance that poured from me in waves. For a heartbeat, the violence stopped completely. Then Kai's voice cut through the supernatural silence like a blade. Moon goddess blood, he breathed, and there was something in his tone I'd never heard before. Fear. It's true. She really is. Mine, Damon finished, moving to my side as the silver light began to fade. And you will not take her. You arrogant fool, Kai snarled, but his gray eyes remained fixed on me with newfound wariness. Do you have any idea what you've claimed? What she could do to both our packs? I know exactly what she is. Damon's blade never wavered as he faced his half-brother across the wreckage of the great room. The question is, why didn't you? Something flickered in Kai's expression, shame, maybe, or regret. Because I was told not to look too closely. Mother said. Mother? The word cracked like a whip, and Damon's entire body went rigid. What does Luna Queen Morgana have to do with this? The name hit me like a physical blow. Luna Queen Morgana, the most powerful she-wolf in the Northern Territories, ruler of the Eastern Pack Alliance, and according to legend, Kai's mother. I'd never met her, had only heard whispers of her beauty and ruthlessness, her ability to bend alphas to her will. She's been watching Sera for years, Kai admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Ever since the bloodline trackers identified her as a moon goddess descendant. Mother said the old bloodlines were too dangerous to awaken, that they had to be managed. Managed? The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees as Damon's fury filled the space like a living thing. You mean controlled? Suppressed? Destroyed? The mate bond was artificial, Kai continued, and each word felt like a knife to my heart. Mother arranged it through the old magic, made us both believe the moon goddess had chosen us for each other. She said it was the only way to keep Sera's power dormant. I staggered, the revelation hitting me harder than any physical blow. My entire life, our entire relationship, it was all a lie. The feelings were real, Kai said quickly, something desperate creeping into his voice. At least, mine were. But the bond itself was a chain, I finished, understanding flooding through me like ice water. A magical chain designed to keep me from ever discovering what I really was. And when it became clear that even the artificial bond wasn't enough to contain your growing power, a new voice said from the doorway, more drastic measures became necessary. Every head in the room turned toward the entrance, where a woman stood silhouetted against the night. Even in the dim light, she was breathtaking, tall and elegant, with silver-streaked auburn hair and eyes like pale jade. Power radiated from her in waves, the kind of ancient authority that made even alphas bow their heads. Luna Queen Morgana had arrived. Mother, Kai breathed, and I could hear relief in his voice. You came. Of course I came. The moment I felt that surge of goddess blood awakening, I knew the containment had failed. Her jade eyes swept over me with calculating coldness. Hello, child. You've caused quite a stir. Have I? I lifted my chin, refusing to be intimidated despite the power pressing against me like a physical weight. Or have you? Her laugh was like silver bells, beautiful and utterly without warmth. Bold words from someone who understands so little. Tell me, dear, what do you think happens when goddess blood awakens fully? When the old magic stirs again after centuries of careful suppression? I think, Damon stepped between us, his blade still drawn, that you're about to tell us whether we want to hear it or not. Such manners, Morgana sked, but her attention remained fixed on me. Very well. When the last of the moon goddess bloodlines awakens to her full power, the supernatural world changes. Permanently. The old hierarchies crumble. The carefully maintained balance between packs collapses. Chaos reigns. You're talking about evolution, I said, understanding dawning. You're afraid of change. I'm afraid of war, she corrected. Of watching everything we've built over centuries burn because one little girl couldn't accept her place in the natural order. And what place is that? Damon's voice was deadly quiet. Chained to your son? Power suppressed? Breeding stock for your political games? Safe, Morgana snapped, the first crack in her perfect composure. Protected. Contained where she couldn't destroy everything. The way you tried to contain me? Damon asked, and suddenly pieces began clicking into place in my mind. You, I whispered, staring at him. She did something to you too. Morgana's smile was sharp as a blade. Oh yes, dear Damon knows all about containment. Tell her, stepson. Tell her about the curse I placed on you the day you challenged my son's right to lead. Damon's jaw clenched, but he didn't deny it. Every supernatural I kill leaves a mark on my soul. The more violence I commit, the more my humanity slips away. Eventually, I'll become nothing but a monster. A poetic sort of justice, Morgana said with satisfaction. The would-be usurper cursed to destroy himself through his own ambition. But that's not all, is it? I could feel the truth hovering just beyond my grasp, terrible and inevitable. The curse, it's why you needed me. My blood can break it. Very good, Morgana clapped slowly. Yes, goddess blood can cleanse almost any magical taint. All Damon had to do was seduce you, bind you to him, and use your power to free himself. Quite clever, really. The words hit me like physical blows, each one carefully calculated to cause maximum damage. I turned to stare at Damon, waiting for him to deny it, to tell me it wasn't true. He didn't. Sera, he started, reaching for me, but I stepped back. Is it true? My voice came out smaller than I'd intended. Did you orchestrate all of this just to break your curse? It started that way, he admitted, and something inside my chest cracked. But what grew between us was part of the plan, I finished, backing away from him until I hit the wall. The perfect seduction. Make me fall for you, use my power, then discard me when you got what you needed. No. The word tore from his throat like a battle cry. Sera, what I feel for you. Is irrelevant, Morgana interrupted smoothly. Because none of you are leaving this room alive. The threat hung in the air like poison, and I suddenly became aware that during our confrontation, Morgana's wolves had surrounded us completely. Not just Moonridge Pack, but others, dozens of unfamiliar faces wearing the colors of different territories. She'd brought an army. You see, she continued conversationally, I've spent years building alliances, preparing for this exact scenario. The moment Goddess Blood awakened, every alpha in the Northern Territories would unite to contain the threat. No one wants to see their carefully built power structures crumble. So you'll kill her, Damon said flatly. Murder the last moon goddess descendant to preserve your political games. I'll eliminate a threat to supernatural stability, Morgana corrected. And anyone foolish enough to stand with her. Kai stepped forward, and for a wild moment I thought he might defend me. Then he spoke. What about the child? The words hit the room like a bomb, and I felt all the blood drain from my face. How did he? Yes, Morgana's smile turned predatory. I can smell it too. Damon's heir, growing in goddess blood soil. How inconvenient. You knew, I whispered, staring at Kai in horror. That's why you came here. Not to rescue me, but to clean up a mess that should never have been allowed to happen, he said, but I could see the pain in his steel-gray eyes. I'm sorry, Sera. I truly am. But this is bigger than what any of us wants. Stand down, Damon, Morgana commanded, her voice carrying alpha authority magnified by centuries of power. Let us end this cleanly, and I might allow some of your pack to survive. Never. Damon raised his blade, power crackling around him like black lightning. If you want her, you'll have to go through me. And me. Marcus stepped up beside his alpha, weapon drawn. And me. Lydia appeared on Damon's other side, amber eyes blazing with battle fury. One by one, the Shadowpine wolves moved to stand between me and Morgana's army. Outnumbered 3-1, facing almost certain death, they chose to fight for their alpha's mate rather than surrender. The gesture broke something loose in my chest, not the sharp crack of heartbreak, but the deeper rumble of foundations shifting. These wolves, who barely knew me, were willing to die to protect me and my unborn child. While the man I'd once loved stood with my enemies. Power stirred in my blood again, but this time it felt different. Hotter. More focused. Angrier. Enough, I said, stepping forward. Silver light began to pour from my skin, but not the gentle radiance from before. This was the silver of moonlight on a blade, of lightning splitting the sky, of a goddess's wrath finally awakened. You want to know what happens when goddess blood reaches its full potential? I asked Morgana, my voice carrying harmonics that made the windows rattle. Let me show you. The power erupted from me like a solar flare, washing over the room in waves of silver fire. But instead of freezing everyone in place, it began to change them. I could see the artificial bonds Morgana had woven over the years, magical chains binding wolves to her will, curses twisted into their very souls, the web of control she'd spent decades building. And I began to burn it all away. Screams filled the air as her magical constructs unraveled, decades of careful manipulation crumbling in the face of true goddess power. Wolves who'd served her out of magical compulsion suddenly remembered their own will, their own choices. Impossible, Morgana gasped, staggering as her network of control collapsed. You're just a child. You don't have the knowledge. I don't need knowledge, I said, advancing on her as silver flames danced around my hands. I have something better. I have righteous fury. But even as I prepared to end the threat she represented, to protect my unborn child and the wolves who'd chosen to stand with me, I felt something go wrong. The power was too much. Too wild. Without proper training, without understanding of what I was unleashing, I was losing control of forces that could reshape reality itself. And in that moment of realization, as goddess fire threatened to consume everything I was trying to protect, I heard Aria's voice whisper in my mind. Now you understand why they feared you. Why they tried so hard to keep you chained. You're not just the last of the goddess bloodlines, Sera. The silver fire reached a crescendo, reality itself beginning to bend around me. You're the one prophesied to either save the supernatural world, or destroy it completely. The prophecy. There had always been a prophecy. And as my power spiraled beyond my control, as friend and foe alike fell to their knees before the unleashed might of the moon goddess's Heir, I realized that the choice between salvation and destruction might not be mine to make. The goddess fire was making it for me. If you are enjoying this video, do well to like this video and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. Chapter 5. The goddess fire was killing me. I could feel it burning through my veins like molten silver, too powerful for my mortal body to contain. The prophecy echoed in my mind, save or destroy, but I was rapidly discovering that I might not survive long enough to do either. Around me, the great room had become a wasteland of supernatural destruction. Wolves lay scattered across the floor, some unconscious from the magical backlash, others writhing as centuries-old curses unraveled from their souls. Morgana knelt 20 feet away, her perfect composure shattered as her network of control crumbled, jade eyes wide with something that might have been terror. But it was Damon's voice that cut through the chaos, desperate and commanding. Sera. You have to stop. The power is consuming you from the inside out. I tried to respond, tried to tell him I couldn't control it, but only silver fire poured from my mouth. The goddess blood in my veins had awakened fully, and without centuries of training to guide it, it was destroying me as surely as it was destroying everything else. Through the haze of power and pain, I felt strong arms wrap around me from behind. Damon's scent, pine and leather and something darker now, surrounded me as he pulled my back against his chest. Listen to me, he said urgently, his lips against my ear. You're burning out. Your human body can't channel this much divine power without an anchor. Anchor? I tried to ask, but the goddess fire stole my voice again. A soul bond, he continued, his voice rough with desperation. If I bind my soul to yours, I can help you carry the load. Share the burden before it kills you. Even through the chaos consuming me, I understood what he was asking. A soul bond wasn't like the artificial mate bond Morgana had created between Kai and me. It was deeper, permanent, irreversible. It would tie us together in ways that went beyond this lifetime. And it would mean accepting everything he'd done, the manipulation, the lies, the calculated seduction, as part of myself forever. The curse, I managed to whisper, the words scorching my throat. Your darkness will become yours too, he admitted. Every life I've taken, every shadow on my soul, you'll carry it all. But it's the only way to save you. To save our child. Our child. Even now, I could feel the tiny life growing inside me, precious and fragile, threatened by the same power that was supposed to protect it. I nodded once, unable to speak but hoping he'd understand. This is going to hurt, Damon warned, then sank his teeth into his own wrist. The scent of his blood hit the air, rich and dark, carrying undertones of violence and something infinitely older. Power, but not the clean silver fire of goddess blood. This was earthier, more primal, touched with shadows that spoke of ancient sins. Drink, he commanded, pressing the bleeding wound to my lips. His blood hit my tongue like liquid lightning, but instead of burning, it soothed. The silver fire that had been consuming me from within suddenly had somewhere else to go, flowing through the connection between us and into Damon's more experienced vessel. Relief flooded through me as the pressure eased, but it was immediately followed by something else. Pain. Fury. The taste of another wolf's blood on my tongue as claws tore through flesh and bone. The satisfaction of a kill, of dominance asserted, of. The memory wasn't mine, but it crashed through my consciousness with the force of lived experience. I was seeing through Damon's eyes, feeling what he'd felt in the moment he'd taken a life. And it wasn't just one memory. They came in waves, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Years of violence and death, each kill leaving its mark on his soul like a brand. I saw him tear out the throat of a rogue wolf who'd threatened his pack. Felt his satisfaction as he broke the neck of a rival alpha who'd challenged him. Experienced his cold calculation as he hunted down the wolves who'd murdered his mother. With each memory came a piece of his darkness, flowing into me through the blood bond and settling into my soul like poison. Damon, I gasped, pulling away from his wrist as the visions threatened to overwhelm me. What have you done? What I had to, he said, his gray eyes now shot through with silver light, my light, flowing through our connection. The bond is taking hold. Can you feel it? I could. The frantic burning of goddess fire had settled into a manageable glow, but in its place was something else. A thread of darkness that connected me to every shadow in Damon's soul, every moment of violence, every choice that had led him further from his humanity. And underneath it all, growing stronger by the minute, was a rage that wasn't entirely my own. The memories, I said, struggling to my feet as the room slowly stopped spinning. They're so vivid. So real. Because they are real. That's what a soul bond means. No barriers, no secrets, no protection from each other's darkness. His voice was grim. I'm sorry, Sera. I know what this costs you. Around us, the supernatural chaos was beginning to settle. Morgana's wolves were stirring, their confusion evident as they realized the magical compulsions that had driven them were gone. Some were already slinking toward the exits, unwilling to continue a fight they'd never truly chosen. But Morgana herself was standing now, her jade eyes fixed on us with renewed fury. You fool, she snarled at Damon. Do you have any idea what you've just done? A soul bond with goddess blood? You've created something that shouldn't exist. Good, Damon replied, moving to stand protectively in front of me. Maybe it's time some things that shouldn't exist started fighting back. Morgana's laugh was bitter. You think this ends with the two of you bonded? You think love conquers all? She gestured toward me with contempt. Look at her, stepson. Really look. Tell me what you see. Damon's head turned, and I saw his expression change as he took in my appearance. I looked down at myself and understood his shock. My skin was glowing with a soft silver light, but it wasn't the clean radiance of before. Dark veins ran through the illumination like cracks in marble, and my fingernails had grown longer, sharper. More predatory. The bond works both ways, Morgana continued with satisfaction. Her power is cleansing your curse, yes. But your darkness is corrupting her divinity. Give it time, and there won't be anything left of the goddess-born innocent you thought you were saving. As if to prove her point, a wave of foreign emotion crashed through me, bloodlust, pure and simple. The urge to hunt, to kill, to tear apart anyone who threatened what was mine. I looked at Morgana and imagined how satisfying it would be to watch her bleed. The thought should have horrified me. Instead, it felt right. Sera? Damon's voice was careful, concerned. How are you feeling? Different, I admitted, flexing my fingers and watching the new claws extend. Stronger. Angrier. The pregnancy is accelerating the process, Morgana observed clinically. Goddess blood and cursed wolf, creating something entirely new. I wonder how long her mortal body can sustain it. Pregnancy. I pressed a hand to my stomach and gasped. What I felt there was no longer the barely there flutter of new life. The child had grown, significantly. In the minutes since the soul bond, my pregnancy had advanced from days to weeks. What's happening to me? I whispered. Evolution, Damon said grimly. Our bond, the mixed blood, the goddess power, it's all accelerating everything. Including the pregnancy, I finished, understanding flooding through me like ice water. It's growing too fast. How fast? His voice was carefully controlled, but I could feel his fear through our connection. I closed my eyes and reached inward, using my new awareness to assess the life growing within me. What I found made my knees nearly buckle. Days, I breathed. Maybe a week at most. But that wasn't the worst of it. Twins, I added, the knowledge settling into my consciousness with absolute certainty. I'm carrying twins, and they're growing so quickly that... That what? Damon demanded. I met his eyes, letting him see the truth I'd discovered. That the birth is going to kill me. My body can't sustain this kind of accelerated development. The delivery will burn through whatever life force I have left. The silence that followed was deafening. Through our soul bond, I could feel Damon's anguish, his desperate scramble for solutions, his refusal to accept what seemed inevitable. No, he said finally. There has to be another way. Your goddess blood, the healing properties, are being consumed by the pregnancy itself, I said gently. I can feel it, Damon. Every hour that passes, I get a little weaker while they get stronger. It's like they're burning through my life force to fuel their own development. Then we'll find a way to slow it down. Stop it. Something. There is no stopping it, Morgana said, her voice carrying the weight of grim certainty. What you've created is beyond anyone's control now. The children will live, goddess blood mixed with cursed wolf will make them incredibly powerful. But their mother. She didn't need to finish the sentence. Sera. Damon's hands cupped my face, his thumb tracing the line of my cheekbone. Look at me. We'll find a way. I won't lose you. But even as he spoke the words, I could feel the truth through our bond. He'd known this might happen when he offered to share his blood. Had weighed the risk and decided that a few days with me was better than watching me burn out from uncontrolled goddess fire. You knew, I said softly. When you suggested the soul bond, you knew it might kill me. His silence was answer enough. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow, but it was immediately complicated by the rage flowing through our connection, his fury at himself, at the impossible choices, at a universe that seemed determined to destroy everything he cared about. And underneath it all, darker and more disturbing, was a cold satisfaction that whispered, at least she'll die as mine. The thought wasn't entirely his, I realized with growing horror. It was the curse, the accumulated darkness of decades of violence, seeping into my consciousness and warping my emotions. Making me capable of thoughts that would have disgusted me a week ago. I need air, I said, pulling away from him and heading for the door. Sera, wait. Don't. I held up a hand, silver fire crackling around my fingers. I need space to think. To figure out what I am now. What we are. I walked through the wreckage of the great room, past unconscious wolves and shattered furniture, out into the cool night air. Behind me, I could hear Damon arguing with Morgana, their voices rising in anger and recrimination. But their words faded as I pressed my hands to my stomach and felt the rapid flutter of not one heartbeat, but two. Strong and steady and growing stronger every minute. My children. Damon's children. Conceived in passion, nurtured in darkness, destined to be born from the death of their mother. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd spent my entire life being controlled by others, first by Morgana's artificial mate bond, then by Kai's rejection, then by Damon's manipulation. And now, at the end, I was being controlled by my own body's inability to sustain the life growing within it. But maybe, I thought as silver fire danced around my fingers and dark satisfaction curled through my heart, control was overrated anyway. Maybe it was time to stop trying to save everyone and start deciding who deserved to survive what was coming. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, as the corruption of the soul bonds settled deeper into my consciousness, it felt like coming home. If you are enjoying this video, do well to like this video and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. Chapter 6. The pain came in waves now, each one stronger than the last. I gripped the windowsill in what had once been my sanctuary bedroom, silver fire crackling involuntarily around my fingers as another contraction rippled through me. Not labor, not yet, but the twins' accelerated growth stretching my body beyond its limits. 3 days. It had been 3 days since the soul bond, and my pregnancy had advanced to what should have been 6 months. I could feel my life force burning away like a candle in a hurricane, consumed by the impossible task of nurturing 2 supernatural beings who were developing at an inhuman pace. Through our connection, I felt Damon's approach before I heard his footsteps. His emotions were a chaotic storm, guilt, desperation, love, and underneath it all, the cold calculation that was becoming more familiar as his curse seeped deeper into my consciousness. You should be resting, he said from the doorway, his voice carefully neutral. Hard to rest when your children are trying to claw their way out from the inside, I replied without turning around. The forest beyond the window blurred as another wave of agony crested and receded. He moved closer, and I caught his reflection in the glass, dark circles under his eyes, lines of strain around his mouth. The soul bond was taking its toll on him too, forcing him to experience every moment of my deteriorating condition. "There has to be something we can do," he said, the words coming out rough with frustration. "Some way to slow the process, buy us more time." Time for what? I turned to face him, letting him see the silver veins that now covered most of my skin, the way my eyes had begun to glow with constant inner light. "To find another way for you to use me? Another angle you haven't explored yet?" His face went pale. "Sera, that's not. Isn't it?" The anger felt good, clean in a way that cut through the constant pain. "Through our bond, I've been seeing things, Damon. Memories you didn't mean to share. Including the moment you first learned about my bloodline. I discovered it yesterday during a particularly vivid episode, a flash of memory from 2 years ago, when he'd infiltrated a gathering of supernatural historians. I'd watched through his eyes as an ancient wolf scholar had revealed the existence of the last moon goddess descendant, had felt his cold satisfaction as he began planning how to use that information. "You orchestrated everything," I continued, each word precise and cutting. "Not just rescuing me from the rejection ceremony, but the rejection itself. You manipulated Kai into believing he needed a stronger mate. You whispered doubts in his ear, fed his mother's paranoia about goddess blood, made sure he'd cast me aside at exactly the right moment." Damon's silence was confirmation enough. "The soul bond lets me see it all now," I said, taking a step toward him. "Your curse isn't decades old, is it? It's centuries old. You're not Kai's half-brother, you're his great-great-uncle, kept alive by dark magic and an unbreakable need for revenge. The truth hung between us like a blade. Through our connection, I felt his shock that I'd pieced it together, followed immediately by resignation. "How long?" I demanded. "How long have you been planning this?" He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, 237 years. The number hit me like a physical blow. Not years of planning, centuries. "Tell me," I commanded, silver fire dancing around my hands. "All of it. No more lies, no more manipulations. If I'm going to die birthing your children, I deserve to know why." Damon moved to the fireplace, staring into the flames as if they held answers. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of centuries. "My name isn't Damon Blackthorn. It's Damon Magnus Thornfield, first son of Alpha Magnus and his true mate, Elena Nightshade. Kai is my descendant, not my brother, my great-great-nephew, carrying my bloodline but not my birthright." The room seemed to shift around me as the full scope of his deception became clear. When I was 25, I challenged the corrupt Alpha who had murdered my father and stolen leadership of what would become the Moonridge Pack. I was winning. I had the support of the people, the blessing of the moon goddess, the rightful claim to power. But Magnus' widow, Morgana, couldn't bear to see her political games unraveled. His hands clenched into fists. She cursed me on the battlefield, in front of both packs. Every life I took in combat would mark my soul, slowly stripping away my humanity until I became nothing but a monster. She said it was justice, that someone who lived by violence should die by it. "But you didn't die," I said softly. "No. The curse kept me alive, kept me strong, but it also kept me from aging properly. Every decade or so, I'd have to disappear, change my identity, start over. Always planning, always waiting for the right moment to reclaim what was stolen. And then you learned about moon goddess bloodlines. The only power that could break an ancient curse. But there were so few left, and they were all heavily protected, surrounded by powerful packs who understood their value." His gray eyes met mine, and I saw centuries of pain there. Except for one. A girl hidden in a small pack, her heritage unknown even to herself, bound to a weak Alpha who didn't deserve her. "Me," I whispered. "You." His voice broke on the word. I planned to seduce you, use your power to break my curse, then disappear before anyone realized what had happened. Clean, simple, victimless. Victimless? Rage flared through me, silver and burning. What about me? What about my life, my choices, my future? I told myself you'd be better off free of Kai's weakness, he said, and I could feel his guilt through our bond like a living thing. That I was doing you a favor by showing you what real strength looked like. And when did you realize you were lying to yourself? Another long silence. Then, the first time I saw you laugh. Really laugh, not the careful smile you showed your pack. It was during that neutral territory gathering 3 months ago. You were playing with some pack children, and for just a moment, you looked free. Happy. And I realized that taking that away from you, even temporarily, would destroy something beautiful. But you did it anyway. I told myself I could make you happy. That once the curse was broken, I could give you everything Kai never could: passion, power, a mate who truly understood your worth. His laugh was bitter. I convinced myself that the ends justified the means. And now? Now I know I'm a monster. The curse didn't make me one, it just revealed what I already was. The pain of his self-loathing flooded through our bond, so intense it brought me to my knees. I gasped, clutching my stomach as the twins responded to my emotional turmoil with violent movement. Sera. Damon was beside me instantly, his hands gentle as he helped me to the bed. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to happen like this. Like what? I panted through another contraction. You never meant to fall in love with your victim? His silence was answer enough. Because that's what this is, isn't it? I continued, my voice weak but determined. You love me. Despite everything, despite the manipulation and lies and centuries of planning, you actually fell in love with me. Yes. The word was torn from his throat. And it's killing us both. Through the window, I caught a glimpse of movement in the forest, figures in dark clothing, moving with military precision toward the compound. My blood turned to ice as I recognized the scent carried on the wind. Hunters, I breathed. Damon's head snapped up, his nostrils flaring as he caught the same scent. Morgana's mercenaries. She's not taking any chances this time. As if summoned by our words, a howl split the night air, not a wolf's call, but something else. Something hungry and wrong that made my skin crawl. What was that? Shadowhounds, Damon said grimly, moving to the window. Morgana's been busy. She's brought everything: supernatural hunters, cursed beasts, probably half the corrupted alphas in the northern territories. Another contraction hit me, stronger than before, and I cried out as pain lanced through my entire body. The twins were running out of room, their supernatural growth putting impossible strain on my failing system. Damon, I gasped, I don't think I have much time left. He was back at my side instantly, his hands checking my pulse, assessing my condition with clinical precision. What he found made his face go white. Your heart, he said. It's struggling. The twins are drawing too much life force. I know. I caught his hand, squeezing it weakly. I can feel myself burning out. Maybe hours, maybe less. No. The word came out as a snarl. I won't let you die. Not like this, not because of my selfishness. You don't have a choice. Alpha Damon. We both turned toward the doorway, where Marcus stood with an expression of barely contained panic. What is it? Damon demanded. There's someone here to see you. Says he has information about saving Sera's life. Who? But before Marcus could answer, a familiar figure stepped into view behind him. Kai. He looked terrible, hollow-cheeked, exhausted, his steel-gray eyes haunted by something that might have been guilt. But he was alone, and he carried no weapons. Hello, Sera, he said softly. You look like I'm dying. I managed a weak smile. Because I am. That's why I'm here. He stepped into the room despite Damon's warning growl. I know a way to save you. To save all of you. Speak, Damon commanded, but his tone suggested he'd rather tear Kai's throat out. The twins' accelerated growth. It's happening because they're trying to reach a power threshold that will let them survive their mother's death. But if we can stabilize Sera's life force, give her the strength to sustain the pregnancy naturally, they'll slow their development to normal speed. And how exactly do we do that? I asked. Kai's expression was grim. Alpha power can be shared between blood relatives. Damon and I may be generations apart, but we carry the same bloodline, Magnus bloodline. If we combine our alpha strength, channel it through you. It might work, Damon said slowly. The additional life force could stabilize her condition. There's a catch, Kai continued, his voice heavy with resignation. The ritual requires a permanent sacrifice. One alpha's power merged completely with the others, sustaining 3 lives instead of 1. The implications hit me like a thunderbolt. One of you dies. One of us gives up our individual existence to save yours, Kai corrected. Our power, our life force, everything we are gets channeled into keeping you and the twins alive. No. I struggled to sit up, silver fire crackling weakly around my hands. I won't let either of you. It's not your choice, Damon said quietly. It's ours. And I've already made mine, Kai added. I should have protected you from the beginning. Should have seen through my mother's manipulations, should have valued what we had instead of chasing some impossible ideal of strength. His voice broke. Let me do this one thing right. Kai. I love you, Sera. I always have. Maybe not the way you deserved, maybe not with the understanding I should have shown, but truly. And if my death can give you the life you deserve with him. He looked at Damon. Then it's a fair trade. Before I could protest further, the world exploded. Windows shattered as something massive crashed through them, a shadowhound, all teeth and claws and unnatural hunger. Behind it came others, pouring through every opening as Morgana's assault began in earnest. The ritual, Kai shouted over the chaos, drawing a silver blade from his coat. We have to do it now, before. He never finished the sentence. A crossbow bolt sprouted from his chest, fired by a hunter who'd rappelled through the broken window. Kai staggered, blood blooming across his shirt. No! I screamed, but another contraction hit me at the same moment, this one so intense it whited out my vision. When I could see again, the room was full of smoke and the sound of battle. Damon was fighting 3 shadowhounds at once, his movements precise and lethal despite the distraction of our shared pain. Kai was on his knees, trying to pull the bolt from his chest while blood pooled around him. And I was in labor. Real labor this time, my body finally surrendering to the impossible demands being placed on it. The twins were coming whether I was ready or not, whether I would survive or not. Damon. I called out as another contraction nearly tore me in half. He looked back, saw what was happening, and his face went white. Hold on, he commanded, decapitating the nearest shadowhound with a vicious swipe. Just hold on. But I could feel it, the life force draining out of me with each wave of pain, the silver fire of my goddess blood dimming as the twins drew everything I had left. I was going to die here, in this burning room, surrounded by enemies and chaos. And my children were going to die with me. Unless. Through the smoke and madness, I met Kai's eyes. He was still alive, still conscious, the crossbow bolt protruding from his chest like an obscene decoration. The ritual, I gasped. Can you still? Yes. He struggled to his feet, pressing one hand to his wound while extending the other toward me. But it has to be now. Damon appeared at my side, his face grim with understanding. Together then. One last time. Together, Kai agreed. As the stronghold burned around us and shadowhounds howled in the night, the 3 of us joined hands and began the ritual that would save my life, and cost one of theirs. If you are enjoying this video, do well to like this video and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. Chapter 7. The ritual began as my body tore itself apart. Kai's hand was ice cold against my burning skin, his life force already ebbing from the crossbow wound, while Damon's grip anchored me to consciousness as another contraction ripped through me like silver lightning. Around us, the battle raged, shadowhounds snarling, hunters shouting orders, the ancient walls of Shadowpine's stronghold groaning under supernatural assault. But all of that faded as alpha power began to flow between the three of us. "Focus on me," Damon commanded, his storm-gray eyes boring into mine as energy crackled between our joined hands. "Let us carry you through this." The power felt different from anything I'd experienced before, not the wild, uncontrolled fire of goddess blood, but something steadier, more grounded. Earth and stone and the deep roots of leadership, flowing from both alphas into my failing system. "It's working," Kai gasped, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. "I can feel her stabilizing." He was right. The constant burning sensation that had plagued me for days was easing, replaced by a warm, sustaining strength that made each breath come easier. The twins' frantic movement settled into a more natural rhythm, as if they too could sense the change. "Don't stop," I managed between contractions. "Whatever happens, don't let go." A shadowhound burst through the smoke-filled doorway, its unnatural howl cutting through the air like a blade. Marcus intercepted it before it could reach us, but I could see more dark shapes moving in the hallway beyond. "We need to move," Damon said, his voice tight with strain. The ritual was taking its toll on him, sweat beaded his forehead, and his usual predatory grace was beginning to falter. "The stronghold won't hold much longer." "She can't be moved," Kai protested. "Not in the middle of labor, not with the ritual." "Then we make our stand here," Damon decided grimly. As if summoned by his words, the remaining shadowhounds poured into the room in a wave of teeth and claws and supernatural hunger. Lydia appeared in the doorway behind them, her amber eyes blazing as she cut down two of the beasts with silver blades. "Alpha," she called out. "The main hall has fallen. Morgana's forces are moving through the house." "How long do we have?" Damon asked, never breaking the ritual circle. "Minutes, maybe less." Another contraction hit me, stronger than before, and I screamed as my body prepared for the final stage of labor. Through our connection, both alphas flinched as they experienced an echo of my pain. "The babies are coming," I panted. "I can feel them." "Then we do this properly," Kai said, his voice gaining strength despite the blood loss. "Like our ancestors did, with honor and courage and the blessing of the moon goddess." "You're dying," Damon pointed out harshly. "The crossbow bolt will kill me whether I help you or not," Kai finished. "At least this way, my death means something." Through the smoke and chaos, I saw something that made my heart stop. A familiar figure moving through the burning hallway with predatory grace, jade eyes glowing with ancient power. "Morgana," I breathed. She stepped into the doorway like a queen entering her court, untouched by the battle raging around her. Behind her came a dozen hunters armed with weapons that gleamed with unnatural light, silver blessed by corrupted priests, designed specifically to kill supernatural beings. "How touching," she said, her voice carrying easily over the sounds of combat. "The three of you, united at last in your delusions." "You're too late," Damon snarled, alpha authority ringing in his voice. "The ritual is already working. Sera will survive this." "Will she?" Morgana's smile was sharp as winter. "Tell me, stepson, what do you think happens to a goddess born when she channels that much alpha power? When she mingles divine blood with the mortal strength of wolves?" Before anyone could answer, the most intense contraction yet struck me. I doubled over, silver fire erupting from my skin as my body finally surrendered to the inevitable. The first twin was coming, and nothing in heaven or earth would stop it now. "Hold the circle," Damon commanded, his grip on my hand becoming painful in its intensity. "No matter what happens, don't break the circle." I felt Kai's agreement through our connection, his determination blazing even as his life force continued to ebb. Whatever it cost them, whatever it cost all of us, they would see this through. The labor consumed everything, pain and power and the overwhelming need to bring my children safely into this broken world. Time became meaningless, measured only in contractions and the steady flow of alpha strength sustaining me through each wave of agony. And then, in a rush of fluid and moonlight, my son was born. He came into the world screaming, his tiny fists waving defiantly at the chaos surrounding him. But it was his eyes that stole my breath, not the silver of goddess blood or the gray of his father's line, but deep, dark wells that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages. "He's perfect," Kai whispered, his voice filled with wonder. "He's mine," Damon said, but there was no possessiveness in it. Only awe. The second twin followed moments later, sliding into the world with an almost supernatural ease. My daughter, smaller than her brother but radiating power that made the air itself shimmer. When she opened her eyes, they blazed with pure silver light, the unmistakable mark of the moon goddess's blessing. "Impossible," Morgana breathed, taking a step forward. "Twins born of goddess blood and cursed wolf. Do you have any idea what you've created?" "Children," I said fiercely, cradling both babies against my chest despite my exhaustion. "I've created children who will grow up free of your manipulations." "Free?" Morgana's laugh was like breaking glass. "They'll never be free. That boy carries his father's curse in his blood. Every life he takes will mark his soul, just as it has marked Damon's." "And the girl?" Her jade eyes fixed on my daughter with something that might have been hunger. "The girl is pure goddess blood. Untainted by mortality, unlimited in her potential. She could reshape the supernatural world with a thought." "Which is exactly what you're afraid of," I realized, understanding flooding through me like ice water. "You're not trying to protect the supernatural world from chaos. You're trying to protect your position in it." "I'm trying to prevent war," Morgana snapped, but I could see the truth in her eyes now. "When that child comes of age, when she realizes what she can do, every alpha in existence will either bow to her or try to destroy her. The old order will crumble." "Good," I said simply. "Maybe it's time for a new order." That's when she struck. Power erupted from Morgana like a physical force, slamming into our ritual circle with enough strength to shatter stone. Both alphas cried out as the connection wavered, their combined strength flickering like a candle in a hurricane. "I won't let you destroy everything I've built," Morgana snarled, raising her hands as dark energy gathered around her fingers. "The children die here. Tonight." "No." The word came out as a growl, and I felt my own power responding, not the wild fire of before, but something colder, more focused. More final. "They don't." I looked down at my children, memorizing every detail of their perfect faces. My son, dark-eyed and fierce even in sleep. My daughter, silver-bright and already reaching toward the moon visible through the shattered windows. They deserved a chance. A real chance, free from the weight of ancient curses and political machinations. Free from the endless cycle of manipulation and control that had defined my own life. And there was only one way to give that to them. "Damon," I said softly, meeting his eyes through our bond. "I need you to let go." "Never." His grip on my hand tightened. "Sera, whatever you're thinking." "I'm thinking that some sacrifices are worth making." I turned to Kai, seeing the understanding dawning in his gray eyes. "Both of you have spent so long fighting each other, hating each other, trying to claim what you thought you deserved. But love isn't about claiming. It's about letting go. Sera. I can strip her of her power," I continued, my voice growing stronger even as my body grew weaker. "My goddess blood can burn away her corruption, break the web of control she's spent centuries building. But it will take everything I have left." "Then we find another way," Damon said desperately. "There is no other way." I pressed a gentle kiss to each of my children's foreheads, letting my love for them flow through the touch. This is what the prophecy meant. Not destruction or salvation for the supernatural world, choice. The choice to break free from the past and build something better. Morgana's power reached a crescendo, dark energy crackling around her like living shadow. "Enough talk. They die. All of them." She unleashed her attack, and I released the ritual circle. Silver fire erupted from my skin, but not in the wild, uncontrolled bursts of before. This was focused, purposeful, divine. It met Morgana's darkness head-on, and where the two forces collided, reality itself seemed to bend. I poured everything into that confrontation, my love for my children, my rage at a lifetime of manipulation, my desperate hope for a better future. The goddess blood sang in my veins as it burned itself out, consuming my life force to fuel powers that no mortal body was meant to contain. Morgana screamed as her carefully constructed web of control began to unravel. Centuries of accumulated power, stolen from willing and unwilling alike, started to flow back to its original sources. Across the supernatural world, I felt wolves suddenly remembering their own will, their own choices. "You don't understand," she gasped, her perfect composure finally cracking. "Without control, without order, there will be chaos. War. Destruction." "Maybe," I admitted, feeling my strength fade with each word. "But there will also be freedom. And sometimes, freedom is worth the risk." The silver fire reached its peak, and I felt Morgana's power shatter completely. She collapsed to her knees, suddenly looking every one of her centuries, her jade eyes wide with shock and disbelief. "It's done," I whispered, sinking back against the wall as the fire began to die. "It's finally done." Damon was beside me instantly, his hands checking my pulse, assessing the damage. What he found made his face go white. "You're burning out," he said, his voice breaking. "The goddess blood, it's consuming itself." "I know." I looked down at my children, sleeping peacefully despite the chaos around them. "But they're safe now. Free. That's what matters." "Sera, please," Kai had crawled closer, his own wounds forgotten in the face of my deteriorating condition. "There has to be something." "There is something," I said, feeling a strange peace settle over me as understanding dawned. "I'm not the first of my bloodline to make this choice. My great-great-grandmother gave up her immortality for love. My mother gave up her power for family. And now I give up my life for freedom." "No." Damon's hands cupped my face, his thumb tracing the path of a tear I hadn't realized I was crying. "I won't let you go. Not like this." "You have to," I whispered, feeling the world begin to fade around the edges. "Someone needs to raise them. To teach them that power without love is meaningless, but love without the courage to act is useless." "Sera. Promise me," I insisted, my voice growing weaker. "Promise me you'll work together. Put aside the old hatred, the old grievances. For them." I saw the moment when they understood, really understood, what I was asking of them. Not just to raise my children, but to redefine what family meant. To choose love over legacy, cooperation over competition. "I promise," Kai said, his hand covering mine where it rested on my daughter's back. "As do I," Damon agreed, his voice rough with unshed tears. "Good." I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. "That's good." The silver fire was almost gone now, taking my life force with it. But as darkness crept in at the edges of my vision, I felt something else, a presence, ancient and benevolent, reaching down to guide my spirit home. "Well done, daughter," the moon goddess whispered in my mind. "Your sacrifice will echo through the ages." "Will they be happy?" I asked, my thoughts growing faint. "They will be free," she replied. "And freedom is the foundation of all happiness." As consciousness slipped away, I heard my children's soft breathing, felt Damon's hand in mine, sensed Kai's protective presence nearby. The stronghold was burning, the old order was crumbling, and I was dying. But for the first time in my entire life, I was exactly where I was supposed to be. The moon goddess was calling me home, and I was ready to answer. If you are enjoying this video, do well to like this video and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. Chapter 8. The silver fire was consuming me from within, but I had never felt more at peace. Morgana lay crumpled on the floor, her ancient power stripped away, leaving her looking fragile and mortal for the first time in centuries. Around us, the battle had ceased, her hunters fled when their mistress fell, and the shadowhounds had dissolved into mist without her will to sustain them. But the cost was becoming clear with each labored breath I took. "Sera." Damon's voice was breaking, his hands trembling as they cupped my face. "Stay with me. Please. I could feel the goddess blood burning itself out, taking my life force with it. Each heartbeat was a struggle, each breath a victory earned through sheer will. But I needed these last moments, needed to memorize my children's faces, to say the words that would have to last them a lifetime. Bring them closer, I whispered. Kai, pale from blood loss but somehow still alive, carefully placed my son in my left arm while Damon settled my daughter against my right side. They were so perfect, so innocent of the chaos that had brought them into the world. Your names, I breathed, looking down at them. You need names. Sera, don't, Damon started. Alexander, I said, touching my son's dark hair. For the strength to conquer anything. And Luna, I smiled as my daughter's silver eyes opened to meet mine. For the light that guides lost souls home. Beautiful names, Kai said softly, his own tears falling freely now. They'll grow up knowing how much you love them. Will they? The question came out smaller than I'd intended. How do you explain to children that their mother chose to die for an ideal they're too young to understand? You didn't choose to die, Damon said fiercely. You chose to save them. To save all of us. There's a difference. Through the shattered windows, I could see the first pale light of dawn touching the horizon. How fitting that I would die with the sunrise, the silver fire of goddess blood giving way to the golden light of a new day. I need you both to understand something, I said, my voice growing weaker. This was always going to be my fate. The moon goddess doesn't give her bloodline lightly. We're born to serve, to sacrifice, to bridge the gap between the divine and mortal worlds. That's not fair, Damon growled, but there was no anger in it anymore. Only grief. Life rarely is. I managed to lift my hand to his cheek, feeling the wetness of tears there. But that doesn't mean it's without purpose. Through our soul bond, I could feel his anguish like a physical thing, the desperate scramble for solutions, the refusal to accept what was happening, the raw terror of losing the one person who'd made him feel human again after centuries of darkness. I can take it back, he said suddenly. The soul bond, I can reverse it, give you back the life force I've taken. No. The word came out with more strength than I'd felt in minutes. You can't save me, Damon. But you can save them. I looked down at Alexander and Luna, sleeping peacefully despite the chaos around them. They'll need you. Both of you. How? Kai asked, his voice hollow. How do we work together when everything between us is built on hatred and competition? By remembering that love isn't about winning, I said. It's about putting someone else's needs before your own pride. I could feel the silver fire beginning to flicker, my goddess blood finally reaching its limits. But there was something else now, a presence hovering at the edge of my consciousness, patient and benevolent and infinitely ancient. It's time, daughter. The moon goddess's voice was like starlight made audible, beautiful and terrible and absolutely final. I know, I replied, surprised by how ready I felt. Will you watch over them? As I have watched over all my children. But their path is their own to walk. And the curse? Damon's darkness? Will fade with time and love. Your sacrifice has broken more than Morgana's power, it has broken the cycle of vengeance that has plagued the Thornfield bloodline for generations. I felt a tear slip down my cheek, but it wasn't from sadness. It was relief, pure and simple. My children would be free in ways I had never been. Sera? Damon's voice seemed to come from very far away. What's happening? She's calling me home, I whispered, feeling my body beginning to change. The silver light wasn't just inside me anymore, it was beginning to pour from my skin, transforming flesh into something more ethereal. No. His arms tightened around me desperately. I won't let you go. You have to. I turned my face toward his, drinking in the sight of those storm-gray eyes one last time. I need you to know, everything you did, all the manipulation, the lies, the centuries of planning, I forgive you. All of it. Sera. You were cursed, lonely, desperate. You made choices you thought you had to make. But in the end, you chose love. That's what matters. Through our bond, I felt his soul crack open, centuries of guilt and self-hatred pouring out like poison from a wound. And through that same connection, I gave him everything I could: forgiveness, understanding, and the absolute certainty that he was worthy of redemption. Take care of them, I breathed, feeling the transformation accelerating. Teach them to be better than we were. I will, he promised, his voice breaking completely. I swear on my soul, I will. I turned to Kai, seeing my own understanding reflected in his steel-gray eyes. And you, teach them that strength isn't about domination. It's about lifting others up. I will, he vowed. I promise. The silver light was intensifying now, washing over all of us like liquid moonbeams. I could feel my physical form beginning to dissolve, my spirit preparing to join the eternal dance of stars and moonlight. But as the transformation reached its peak, I felt a moment of perfect clarity, a vision of the future spreading out before me like a tapestry. I saw Alexander growing tall and strong, his father's darkness tempered by the love of two men who had learned to put aside their differences for his sake. I saw Luna coming into her power gracefully, guided by the wisdom of those who had sacrificed everything to ensure her freedom. I saw Damon and Kai, no longer enemies but something more complex, not quite brothers, not quite friends, but united in their determination to honor my memory by raising my children well. And I saw the supernatural world itself changing, the rigid hierarchies that Morgana had maintained for centuries giving way to something more fluid, more just. My sacrifice hadn't just saved my children, it had freed every wolf who had been bound by artificial constraints, every alpha who had been forced to bow to corrupt authority. The vision faded as my body completed its transformation, flesh and blood becoming pure light. I had just moments left, enough for the words that needed to be said. I love you, I whispered to all of them, to my children, to the men who had shaped my destiny, to the pack that had given me sanctuary in my final days. Remember that. When the nights are dark and the path is unclear, remember that you are loved. And then, as the sun crested the horizon and painted the world in shades of gold and rose, I let go. My body dissolved into silver light, flowing upward like reverse rain until only the faintest shimmer remained. But I wasn't gone, not entirely. I would live on in the memories of those who had known me, in the choices my children would make, in the new world that my sacrifice had helped create. Damon's anguished cry echoed through the ruins of the stronghold, a sound of such raw grief that it seemed to shake the very foundations of reality. Beside him, Kai wept silent tears, his own heart breaking for the woman he had loved and lost not once, but twice. But in their arms, Alexander and Luna slept on, safe and whole and free. 20 years later. She's doing it again. Damon looked up from the pack reports he'd been reviewing to see Kai standing in the doorway of the study they now shared. Despite the decades that had passed, his former enemy still looked like he'd rather be anywhere else when delivering news about Luna's latest supernatural episode. How bad this time? Damon asked, setting aside the papers. She turned the entire eastern meadow into a lake of liquid moonlight. The effect is beautiful, but it's starting to affect the local wildlife. Kai ran a hand through his now silver-streaked hair. She says she was just trying to help the drought, but goddess blood doesn't understand limits, Damon finished with a sigh. I'll talk to her. They found Luna exactly where they expected, sitting by the memorial they'd built for Sera, her silver hair gleaming in the afternoon sunlight as she stared at the inscription carved into white marble: Sera Whitmore Thornfield, beloved mother, daughter of the moon goddess, champion of freedom. At 20, Luna had grown into her power gradually, but recent months had seen an acceleration that reminded both men uncomfortably of her mother's final days. I know you're there, she said without turning around. And I know why you've come. Do you? Alexander emerged from the shadows of the nearby trees, his dark eyes, so like his father's, fixed on his sister with concern. Where Luna was all silver light and ethereal beauty, Alexander had inherited Damon's earthier power, his mother's compassion tempering his father's old darkness. The meadow, Luna said simply. I felt the land's pain and wanted to help. But the power. She turned to face them, and Damon felt his heart clench at how much she looked like Sera in that moment. It's getting stronger. Harder to control. We'll figure it out, Alexander said firmly, moving to sit beside his sister. Just like we always do. Will we? Luna's silver eyes met Damon's, and he saw his own fears reflected there. Or will I end up like her? Burning myself out to save everyone else? The question hung in the air like a blade, cutting through all the comfortable lies they'd told themselves over the years. That Luna would be different. That they could protect her. That love would be enough to change destiny itself. Your mother chose her fate, Kai said carefully. You don't have to choose the same one. Don't I? Luna stood, silver light beginning to dance around her fingers. The goddess blood calls to me, Uncle Kai. Every day, it gets louder. And sometimes, in my dreams, I see her. She tells me that every generation, one of us must answer the call. That it's the price of power. Damon felt something cold settle in his chest. They had given her everything, love, training, freedom, choice. But some destinies, it seemed, couldn't be escaped. Not yet, he said, his voice rough with emotion. Please, Luna. Not yet. She smiled then, and it was Sera's smile, gentle and sad and infinitely loving. Don't worry, father. When the time comes, I'll choose love over duty, just like she did. But the moon goddess. She looked up at the sky, where the pale outline of the moon was visible even in daylight. The moon goddess always takes back what belongs to her. As if in response to her words, a gentle breeze stirred through the memorial garden, carrying with it the faint scent of silver fire and sacrifice. Somewhere in the distance, the moon smiled down at the family Sera had died to protect, already knowing what choices lay ahead. The moon goddess always takes back what belongs to her. I know you enjoyed this video. Please do well to like this video and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. I would also love to know where you are listening from. Do well to leave it in the comments section below and share this video.